Hello, everyone. Welcome to another week of HoloTalk. This is HoloTalk for the week of, no, it's not March anymore. It's April. April 5th, even though we're going up on the 7th. The reason why we're coming up on the 7th is because we had Dr. Jae-ong. He was away on vacation. We didn't get him up to Tuesday of last week, so we wanted to leave him up until Monday night of this week to give him a fair shake. So we're putting this show up on Tuesday. But if you listened to last week's show, you already know that, and that's why you're tuned in today to hear the new show. Announcements. Lasers and Holograms, which is a traveling exhibit of the Pacific Science Center, is going to be coming to the Discovery Center of Science and Technology of Lehigh University. It's going to be here through the summer, and that's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is just next to Allentown, which is just northwest of Philadelphia. And it's a traveling exhibit with a laser holography, a touring exhibit, a lot of interactive things for parents and children to do, and a pretty nice exhibit of holograms. Some very large format holograms of a couple by Dr. John Perry, who's going to be a guest on May 10th on this show. So if you get a chance, if you live in the New York, Philly, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. corridor, it's a quick drive for you. In fact, it's a non-stop drive for you from anywhere in Baltimore, Washington, Philly, or New York City. You can come in nonstop. The first red light that you will get that you'll have to stop is just 2 blocks from the Discovery Center, so it's a quick drive. Our guests. I'd like to go down the list of guests that we have. Every so often I'll go down the entire list. This list is going to take us right into fall of '98. So coming up on April 12th, we have Steve Province of Blue Ridge Holographics. And I just sent Steve an email tonight letting him know that he's on for this week. So as soon as I hear back from him, we'll do the interview and get that up as soon as possible. And hopefully we'll have it up for you Sunday night as planned with our regular broadcast. April 26th is L. Michael Robertson. He's with Laser FX International. That's an organization that does all the laser light shows around the world. So he's going to give us a perspective on how laser light shows are put together. And you might want to tune in case you were thinking of actually doing a few laser light shows of your own. I hear that's taken off. It's getting pretty big where people are getting some laser light show equipment going around and doing nightclubs and school dances and some of the other things that are going on. So you'll want to tune in for L. Michael Roberts. Dr. John Perry from Holographics North, and they manufacture very large format white light transmission holograms up there, the kind that you see at the conventions and at the large museums. And like I mentioned a little earlier, one of Dr. Perry's holograms is included in the laser and hologram exhibit that's going to be coming to the Discovery Center. May 24th, Jason Sapan of Holographic Studios in New York City. This is a studio that also is probably one of the nicest galleries that we have in the Northeast part of the country. You can go in and actually tour the gallery itself, see a lot of holograms on displays, and he's going to probably fill us in on a couple of the production runs that he's doing at his studios as well, because he has all of his holographic tables and laboratories right there at the location as well. June 7th is Peter Shire from AD2000, which is a marketing company for holography, and I think with an email that he had sent me earlier that he wants to discuss holography with short runs. These are people who want to have holograms done, but they don't necessarily need 10 million of them for a magazine cover. So I think he's going to cover, at least focus on short-run holography. Stephen Quest is from Quest Laser Light Shows, and once again, that's going to be on June 21st. And another laser light show that we're going to have here on HoloTalk. So if you're interested in laser light shows, tune in for Stephen Quest. July 12th, George Caligaris, and I think I'm pronouncing that name right. I'm not quite sure. And George is a teacher. He's been teaching holography for many, many years. He has a website up for amateur holography and holography in education, which is a very popular site. And he's going to be covering just that on the week of July 12th, holography in education, and probably more or less for the amateur and hobbyist holographer. July 26th is Arlene Jurich, and she also is involved with holography in education. She's been teaching holography for many, many years. I've known Arlene going way back, and She teaches some very unique things using holograms as models for the brain and how the brain functions, especially in learning age of children. So that's going to be an interesting show that you want to tune in for. August 2nd, Sharon McCormick. And Sharon has done some very famous holograms that you may have seen around, like Sports Illustrated cover that has Michael Jordan, and also she did, I believe, a CD cover for Prince, among other things. And in any case, we'll also have a link to her holography site where you can go on and see all the work that she's done. August 16th, which is getting close to closing out the summer, we have Stephen Michael, and Stephen has a wonderful holography site for amateur holography. And we're going to have him on talking about amateur and hobbyist holography and talk about his website and the different things and projects he's been working on in amateur and hobbyist holography. So that's our lineup running from April 12th, which is coming up this week, to August 16th of this year, which is going to take us into fall. And that's all I have on the sheet, because there's still probably another show or two in August. But that's all that's on the sheet, and I don't see another sheet with it. Anyway, that should be enough for everybody. Okay, let's move on. We'll do some questions this week. We had a shortage of questions for a while. It was a dry spell. Didn't get any calls or any emails. It was depressing. And then all of a sudden, got like 4 or 5 of them here just from in the last week. You've got me. Okay, this question's coming from Michael. And Michael asked, could you please tell me if anybody has used a hologram as a magazine advertisement? Would this be very expensive? Plus, could you have a hologram of a cat, and then if you hold it one way, you see a dog? Yeah, I can tell you about the magazine coverage. There's quite a few, well, you said magazine advertisements, but there's been mostly on covers, I would say, just to grab people's attention, to justify the cost of making a hologram and the production run of putting one on a printed piece. It's a lot better to put it on the cover because you get the opportunity to grab someone's attention when that magazine's on the stand. I've seen them used, I think Car and Driver had a Ford Taurus on it. Sports Illustrated had Michael Jordan. Let's see, what else can I think of? Of course, we had the National Geographic covers, and as far as advertisements, I've seen them in quite a few advertisements. We've got the Absolute Vodka, which was a full-page ad that was just a hologram. Excuse me, the McDonald's restaurant chain took the back cover of one of the National Geographic covers. In fact, the entire cover was nothing but a hologram. So it's used. Is it very expensive? I get the impression from a lot of people that are involved with the printing industry that it is very expensive to them. When you compare that to other traditional premium type of printing that you can do to grab people's attention, they do consider it expensive. The actual prices I don't have at this point. I imagine back when the National Geographic covers ran, and you know, a lot of these things were quite a few years ago. It was didn't have as much competition in the marketplace, and the price was high. But I bet you if you went shopping around, you could probably find something that was in the price range that you were looking for. Go to the link page at the webzine, and there's a whole page of links, and I'm sure there's at least a half dozen companies on there that you could go to their website and find out exactly what they do for holographic printing. If you have a hologram of a cat, and then if you hold it one way, you see a dog. Yeah, they're called multiple channel holograms. Some holograms have 160, 200, 300 individual exposures when you get into the stereograms. But a lot of holograms are multiple channel holograms. People find them fascinating when they're in the store, and they can look at it one side and see one thing, and look at it another way and see another thing. A couple of them that come to mind are the Star Trek holograms. I think one's a Borg. I'm not too familiar with the Star Trek characters, but I think one's a Borg, and it changes into different things as you move. And there's another one which is a computer mouse, where you see a little real mouse on top of a computer mouse that you use with your hand, and as you move past the hologram, you see, you know, different images, and it does different things. So yeah, you can do that, and they're called multiple channel holograms. And the public always wants to see something happen with a hologram, and that's the way to do it. Put multiple channel holograms out there. If someone walks into a shop and they just see a hologram and it doesn't do anything, they're always asking, well, what's this hologram supposed to do? It doesn't do anything. Well, some holograms don't do anything. They're just holograms. Look at them and enjoy it just for what it is. Second question. This is coming from RW. And then the last name, I won't say the last name, so we'll just say it's from RW. Is it possible to make or design holographic images by computer? Yes, it is. We're using a computer to do holograms of the Titanic, and what we're doing is we have the archival film footage from the Titanic expeditions, from Bob Ballard. And Dr. Ballard, I've been working with the Jason Project for a couple years now, and Dr. Ballard's involved with that project, and I've got some of the expedition footage from the Titanic, and what we're doing is it has to meet certain criteria in order to make it a good hologram. The camera has to be moving horizontally as it's passing the object, and then you can take individual frames and then synthesize them into a holographic stereogram frame by frame. So that's one way of using a computer. Now, can you make a hologram directly from computer information? Yes, you can. If you have a 3D design program, you can design an object and take a frame at so many degrees of rotation and send that to a frame printer, and then rotate it a few more degrees and send that to another frame printer where it comes out on film. And you can use that film frame by frame to do the same thing. And I believe I read, I don't know how popular this is or how often this occurs, but I believe that computers can actually write holographic information itself and create a hologram specifically from the data itself rather than the image. And then it goes to a holographic printer that exposes the film or the plate almost pixel by pixel, and it's an incredibly long process to do that. I'm trying to think of a third way. I had it right in the back of my head, and I'm losing it here. Hold on. Well, I put it on pause to try and think of this other way, and that quick, it's gone. I guess senility's starting to set in. But anyway, that should give you a couple examples of computer holograms, computer holography. Okay, hello, I'm David. Won't say the last name. Well, I was at your workshop. Okay, I'm one of my workshop participants. I have two questions about lasers and holograms. The first one is how a laser's made. Second one is how are holograms made. Well, geez, I'll tell you what, David. I mean, we did cover this in the workshop, but maybe you just want me to answer the question on the air. I understand. Lasers are made. Well, there's a lot of different lasers, and it would take a long time to go through all the different types of lasers that there are. It's a long answer to a short question to go into that. The most popular lasers, I'll tell you this, are helium neon lasers used for holography. Most of your amateur and hobbyist holographers are using helium neon lasers. They're very inexpensive. They have a long life, 20,000 hours plus. And they're basically a glass tube that is about the size of a drinking straw, the actual place where the lasing action takes place, and that glass tube is filled with the mixtures of the gases helium and neon. It's the same helium that you find in the helium birthday balloons. It's the same neon that you find in the neon pizza signs when you go out at night to pick up a pizza. And just like a pizza sign, when you apply power to that tube lights up just like the pizza sign does. Now, even though most of the light's escaping through the sides of the tube, we do have mirrors that are placed on the ends of the tube, and the light begins to reflect back and forth between the two mirrors. One of the mirrors is partially reflective, which means when the light is being reflected back and forth between those two mirrors, this specific mirror allows a certain amount of the light to come through, a certain percentage, and that comes through as a laser beam. How are holograms made? Well, holograms are made using a laser. There are certain properties of laser light that we need in order to make a hologram. The light needs to be monochromatic, which means it's one color and one color only at a given time. And the light source also has to be coherent, which means all of the waves that are traveling out of that laser are in step with one another in what I like to term a wave train. And it's these properties of the laser itself and the laser light specifically that allow us to make the holograms. The holograms are made in usually holographic labs, either professional laboratories or amateur studios that you find in some people's basements and even out in garages. There's a holographic table that's usually used, and this holographic table is used to dampen vibrations coming up from the floor. And it needs to be a very stiff table so that you don't get a lot of flex, and that laser beam travels around the table. For a simple hologram, you just need one beam with the object placed behind the plate and spread that laser beam out and cover it with light. More complex holograms, you take that laser beam and break it up into a bunch of different beams using a beam splitter. Send it around the table. You may have 1, 2, 3, or more object beams illuminating your object, and one beam which is specifically used to illuminate the holographic plate or film, which is called the reference beam. It doesn't have to be a very complex process. It can be very simple, and you don't necessarily have to have a large holographic table. I've made holograms on top of tabletops just using a few simple items in order to make the hologram itself. So, David, I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for sending it in. I hope you enjoyed the workshop. Here we have another question that was sent in from email. This is from Farah. I am doing a report for school concerning holograms. My problem is that I can't find any good information regarding the optics involved with holography. Please send me any information you can. I'll answer it on your HoloTalk show. Farah, I think you should go to the link page, number one, and try and find one of the links. Just go down the page and read the descriptions and see if you can find a site that deals a little bit more with holography and the optics. I know there has to be something out there on the web that will give you some information on the optics. But like I answered with David's question, we do not need to have a very complex optical system in order to do holograms. To do a hologram, the least amount of optics that you would need would just be one lens, which would take that laser beam and spread it out and give it enough area to cover the holographic plate with the object behind it. And that would be a single beam reflection hologram that you can view with white light. There are other pieces of optical equipment that you can add to your system for more complex setups. Things such as collimating mirrors, which takes the diverging wavefront of that expanding laser light and puts it into a parallel beam. Also, there are spatial filters, which the light can go through. It goes through an objective lens, which focuses it down to a very small point. And at that point in space, there is a pinhole, which is usually 10, 25 microns in diameter. It's very tiny, and we pass that laser light right at that focal point through the pinhole in the spatial filter. And that cleans up the profile of the beam. Anyone who's done amateur holography knows that a lot of times when you take a beam and you send it through a lens and you show that expanded beam on a white card, you'll notice that it's pretty crappy looking sometimes if you're just using a lens. What a spatial filter does is it cleans that profile. It's actually a beautiful spread light, spread beam of laser light that shows up on the white card, and it really improves the overall quality of the holograms immensely when you use a spatial filter. But it's not necessary to do that. So there are questions for the week. I don't think we have any more. Thank you very much for sending the questions in. If you have any more questions, please send them in. We try to get the questions in on the odd weeks. Every other week we have a guest, and every other week beside that we have the odd week, which we do different things. And a lot of times those things are answering questions. So not to make this show run on and on and on, so what I'm going to say is thank you very much for tuning in. Remember, our guest next week is Steve Province from Blue Ridge Holographics, and if everything goes as planned, that show will go up at April 12th, which is Sunday night. So you want to tune in and see if that shows up. If it's not up, I'll have a message to let you know when to expect that show to be up. So thank you for tuning in to HoloTalk. This is Frankie Freitas. Take care, and see you next week.